Okay, so this is quadratics number
97.
page 97. Page 97, if you've already taken it, this is going to be the best possible way, right? Because you don't want to write this as I'm doing it. You just want to pay attention. Quadratics number 22, deriving the quadratic formula. How many of you have heard the word deriving? You have? Now it's not driving, it's deriving. You with me? Okay, everybody say deriving. This is what math people say when they're making a formula from some basic rules. So we have this idea. We start with these rules in math, and then we build on the rules, and we've derived a new equation from the rules. All right? Now, it's kind of weird because we made up the rules in the first place, right? So if we make up rules and then stick to them, I don't know what that means. But that's the way we do it in math, okay? So here's what you're starting with. The generic quadratic formula. This is a quadratic formula. I'm going to produce for you, from this formula, the quadratic equation. The equation is back in one of the prior lessons. It's one of the ways you can factor a quadratic formula, okay? So let's start with this one. Here's step one. You start with the generic, all right? So this is the standard form of the quadratic equation, all right? I guess I'm going to try to write all this if I can. Standard form, that's its name, of the quadratic formula. So the big thing you're looking for is the power 2. Everybody see power 2? That's what makes it a quadratic. Okay, that's our telltale sign. What shape does it produce when you graph this? Okay, fine. You guys are just like this, right? And its name is? Parabola. Thank you, thank you. That's what it forms. That's its graph. And now we're going to go back and find that quadratic equation. So here's go to number 2. Number 2 is we're going to move the constant over to the right side of the equation. So we're going to have ax squared plus bx. I'm going to say plus c minus c equals 0 minus c. I'm going to clean up this, will disappear, and it's going to become ax squared plus bx equals a negative c. Fair enough? Good so far? All right, let's go for I better do step 3 here, so I have enough room to do all 14 steps. 14 steps is just the way I did it on this lesson. You could do it in 15 or 20 or whatever you decide. This is just the way I laid it out. I'm going to try to stick to the notes so that you can follow it if you have to later, okay? So, next step, we are going to divide this through by the constant a, all right? So, we're going to have x squared plus bx equals negative c. We're going to divide everything by a. All right, and then I clean it up in step 4. So I don't clean it up in 3. That's why I'm going to try to stick to the steps. Let's do number 4. So if you have a divided by a, that goes to 1. Fair enough? So this becomes x squared, first term. We still have the bx over a as another term. And we still have the negative c over a on the right side of the equation. All right, that's step 4 in my notes. So we simplify. Step 5, we're going to complete this square. Everybody say, all right, thank you. Complete the square. So if you remember complete the square from a prior lesson, we're going to take b term, we're going to divide it by 2, and then we're going to square it. Here's the way I say. So I kind of map it out. I say b divided by 2, all right, comma, b over 2a. So see this term right here. We're going to divide this by 2. So there's going to be a bx in here and a 2a. That's the divided by 2 right there. All right, now we're going to square it, comma, squared. So we're going to take this whole thing, come here. Okay, actually I want to leave the x out. The x is not part of that term, my bad. Let me keep that out. We're going to square this, and we're going to get b squared over 2 squared is 4, and a squared on the bottom. Okay, b squared And I kind of wrote it out a little bit nicer. I took this and put it in the notes. I put this in a parentheses and squared it, right? So b squared, a little bit easier for you to see what's happening. 2 squared is 4, a squared is a squared down here in the denominator. All right, this is the completing the square method of factoring. This is the completing the square method of factoring. All right. Now, am I ready for step 6? Step 6, we're going to add that to both sides, which is the method. All right, if you go back and look at that. So step number 6, we're going to go back here, and we're going to keep everything the way it was, right? We're going to say x squared here plus bx over a plus this new term goes here. B squared over 4a squared equals, we have a negative c over a. We're going to squeeze. What you do to one side of the equation is squeezing this in. We must do it to the other side also. So we're going to put a b squared over 4a squared here minus the c over a. Fair enough. We squeezed in the completing the square method. Are you following me kind of so far? Okay, so it goes here and goes here on both sides of the equation. You can do anything to both sides of the equation as long as you're consistent, okay? And you do the same thing. So that's step number 6. Step number 7 is find the common denominator on the right side of the equation. So let's go 7. I sure hope I have enough room here. Okay. See over here how it's 2 fractions being added? This is 4a squared in the denominator. This is just a. So to make a common denominator, if I multiply this one by 4a, it'll turn out to be 4a squared here too, and I'll be able to combine these 2 fractions. All right, so it looks like this. Repeat the left side here. Equals. So now we have this piece, this term, b squared over 4a squared, and I'm going to say minus. It's c over a times 4a on the bottom. What you do on the bottom, you have to do on the top, because this is just multiplying this by 1. What do I get? Let me see how many steps I do this in. Please hold. I do number 8. All right, but let's play it out one more here before I go. I'll go to 8 up here. All right, so if you think about this, I get 4a times a is a squared on the bottom, right? And I'm going to get 4ac on the top. These are going to combine. So how do I want to write this out? 4ac, let me see how I wrote it out in the notes. Well, I just said this was 4ac all over 4a squared. And this piece was, I'm just going to rewrite this right side, b squared over 4a squared. So when you subtract these out, it's going to now play out like this. Repeat the left side, x squared plus b over ax plus b squared over 4a squared. And on the right side now, it's going to say b squared minus 4ac all over the common denominator of 4a squared. Okay, step number 8. All over the yep, 8. So we combine with the common denominator. Boom. Oh, actually I did that in 2 steps. So this is, sorry, I can't stick with my notes. This is step 8 and 9. That means I did this in step 8. All right, and I did this in step 9. There, I think I can correct this. This was step 8 here, where I found the common denominator. This is step 9, where I combine the right side. Okay? Step 10. All right, combine the right side. Now we're going to factor. So this goes back to when we were factoring. Let's do step 10. Factoring the left side is where we end up pulling out the 2 binomials. The 2 binomials are x plus b over, see how I wrote it, 2a, good. B over 2a, there's two of these. In other words, if you came over here out of the way where I had some space and put two of these side by side and did FOIL, you'd get right back to this one, okay? I don't have space to do it, but this is the reverse of that. This is the reverse of FOIL to factor from this to this, all right? So once we do that to this side, this just repeats, b squared minus 4ac all over 4a squared. All right, let me check my steps. Step number 10. Good. Now I'm going to take the square root of both sides. So because there's a square here, the reverse of this will be step 11. We will take the square root of x plus b over 2a squared. This is gonna, the square and the square root will reverse each other. But once you take the square root of the left, you must take the square root of the right. And if you remember, we need a plus minus in there because we're going to get two answers, and all of this is inside of the square root. Okay, now we're up to step 12. Step 12 clears out the left side. So the square root of a square right here leaves you with just x plus b over 2a. And now we're going to take square root of top and square root of the bottom. The square root of 4a squared, the square root of 4 is 2, and the square root of a squared is a. So it becomes in the denominator position down here. Let me draw it the way I drew it. Here, this becomes 2a on the bottom, and this becomes plus minus up top, but the square root remains over the b squared minus 4ac. All right, there we go. Now, step 13, we've got this term which I want to subtract from both sides. Do I show it separately? I show it separately. All right, so I say x plus b over 2a minus b over 2a equals, since I subtracted it from this side, I'm going to do it here, minus b over 2a. And do I break out? Okay, fair enough. Plus minus square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Start to lose that a little bit. All right. These disappear. They go to 0 because it's one thing minus itself. Fair enough? So now I'm left, it looks like I cleaned this up for step number 14. I'm left with x on the left equals. So x equals, do you see the common denominator here of 2a? So those two fractions can be combined. So I get a negative b plus minus radical b squared minus 4ac all over the common denominator of 2a. Everybody go. Do you see it? Do you see what we've got? Do you remember the quadratic equation? X equals negative b plus minus radical b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. That's it. That's where it comes from. We derived it. Okay, I'm not sure the glimmer, not sure the glimmer in your eye sees the magic of what we've produced, but it's a magical thing we've produced, okay? So let me see what others say. So combine the right side. So that's it. That's the 14 steps. And so imagine I could have done different steps at different places, but this all works out to the one at the 14th step, and it matches your notes. Good?